Great questions coming in from our
Good.
listeners, so I'll just turn
Good.
to some of
Yeah,
those.
please.
And one of them, what sorts of conflicts do you see arising between the displaced refugees and the citizens of the host country? Is there a lot of prejudice?
That's a great question.
Competition for jobs?
It's a
and
really great
resources?
question because it's something that we think about a lot now. A rising number of the people that we help are neither refugees nor displaced. They're actually the host population.
Right.
And the reason for that is very, very simple. I mean, in Mafraq in northern Jordan, imagine if we set up a gleaming health center and said, but only refugees are allowed to use these services. I mean, you'd be asking for trouble.
Right.
And I think that if one's expecting Jordanians or anyone else to bear the burdens that exist of a huge new population flow, the least one can do is contribute to the services that they depend on as well. And I think it's a really important point for us to think about people who are afflicted by conflict, not simply being those who have to flee, but it's also those who are in communities where people flee too.
Right.
And so I think that that's it's become an important part of our work, that to try to start asking for ID cards on the way into services and are you a refugee or not is a recipe for disaster, that you've got to make provision that tries to help the local population as well as the displaced population.
Do you have trouble convincing your donors of that?
I think not hopefully if I explain it in the way that I have to you and I say
Yeah.
to them, look, it's not good for the refugees and it's not good for the host community if we have segregated services.
Right.
Then they understand. Now, for kids, you will end up with complementary services that are for refugees only, but you'll also have some of them in the mainstream schooling system. But if the mainstream schooling system can't cope, then services by refugees for refugees is going to be an important part of provision. Actually, our experience in Afghanistan and in Congo is that those complementary services can take the pressure off the mainstream system and actually be very, very effective.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Another question that came in from Twitter is, your employees see the horrors of violence every day. Does the organization provide any psychological, emotional support to them?
Well, that's interesting. We've got an important duty of care to our own staff. Most recently, when I went to South Sudan to visit some of the staff who'd been colleagues of those who were killed, the first question that you ask is, "Are you okay?" Some of them had been home to other parts of the country, or actually in the case that comes to mind, someone who'd gone back to Kenya for a break. And she said to me, look, my kids said, we don't want you to go back to where you work because we think it's dangerous. But she said, I felt an obligation to come back and complete the work I started. So sometimes our own staff are almost,